Hello, everybody, and welcome to another rowing chat. This week, we are talking to the mastermind behind the Rebel Coastal Rowing brand. But before we kick into that, first, a message from our sponsors. We're doing an audience survey here at Rowing Chat, and it's really important for us to understand more about you, our listener, and you are very important because we want to know who you are. We want to know where you live. We want to know a little bit about what you like and dislike about what we do with the podcast, and we would really appreciate it if you could grab a glass of your favorite beverage and come to a website and do a survey for us. The link is on the home page of our website, rowing.chat. Scroll to the bottom, you'll see a little banner and it says audience survey. And please understand, all answers are anonymous. We have over 50 respondents so far, which we're very grateful for. We would like more. So please, if this is your first time listening or you've been a regular listener since the very beginning, please help us out. Now, our second sponsor is William Marnie. They are an expert manufacturer of shirts for athletic men, so dress shirts. And if you find it hard to get a shirt that actually fits your rowing body, William Marnie could be the solution that you're looking for. They have an exclusive 10% discount coupon called Rowing Chat 10, where 10 is a 1 and a 0. You can follow the link in the show notes to go and browse their collection, or go to rowing.chat/sponsors, and you will find all the details there. Now, today, I'd like to welcome Ben Booth. Ben, welcome to Rowing Chat.
Hello.
Now, you obviously are the founder and owner of Rebel Coastal Rowing, but let's roll right back. Tell the listeners about yourself and your background in the sport of rowing.
Okay. I guess like most rowers, there's a lot there. So I started rowing basically because I wanted to be on the water. It wasn't necessarily an initial love of rowing that got me out there, but really just loving nature, loving the ocean, loving to really explore an adventure outside. And so this was way back when I was a kid. I was like one of those weird kids that would sit in my backyard surrounded by birdseed and just wait until birds would come and eat out of my hands and stuff, so just absolutely loved being outdoors, wanted to be on the water. And the only thing I could afford at the time was a little tiny plywood pram. So that pram got me out on the water. Started rowing that thing and just absolutely fell in love with it. And I would row that thing ragged year round.
What is a pram? Here it's something you push babies in.
It is very similar to that. It's and I think that's where the baby pram came from. So a pram is just a square bowed, square sterned, flat bottomed, flat sided box that floats. And that's it. And so it brought baby Ben out onto the water. I remember being out there one winter, it's blowing like 40 knots, it's snowing. I'm out in this 7-foot, shoebox. And I'm rowing the thing so hard, I'm getting it to jump over these little breaking waves. And just laughing and going nuts out there. And I see on the shore this fire truck pull up with the lights all blazing. I can't hear anything because the wind's howling. I'm just wondering what's going on out there. A few minutes later, this Coast Guard boat comes flying across the water, and I'm like, geez, I hope everybody's all right. The Coast Guard boat comes up to me, and I ended up pulling over to them and being like, hey guys, you okay? Do you need help?
You offer them help.
Yeah, they're like, wait a minute, we're here to rescue you. And I was like, what? No, I'm just, this is what I do, so I think that just set a trend. This is what I do. I get out there, and so that is my background. From that, it became known as the rowing kid, and so people are just like, the rowing kid, got to get this guy in a real boat. And so eventually these guys gave me some one of the traditional surf dories, So I started rowing in the more proper rowing boats, surf dories and some of the traditional work boats. There was this really cool scene. This was in the 90s. Really cool scene of just kind of guys rowing these big, heavy wooden boats and racing them and going nuts in them. So I got into that scene for a while. And then from there, just the logical progression. It's like, oh man, you gotta race, kid, And so somebody pulled me into a flat water boat. I learned how to row, sweep, and a straight pair. And that just started bringing the whole rowing scene in.
And you obviously went quite a long way, though, did you not, in your flat water rowing? Tell us a bit about.
A little bit. I did the classics. I went to Philly. I rowed for Undine and Vesper. Did pretty well with it. I got some high finishes in the finals at Independence Day Regatta. Went up to Henley. These kind of things. But really, that was a side tangent for me. My big thing has always been rowing on the coast. Doing the flat water was really cool because it gave me a chance to sort of acknowledge that I could row. In the greater world of rowers, gave me something to say. Yeah, I'm not just fast in my own little world, but I can keep up with people out there. And yeah, from really just about 2 to 3 years of intensive flat water rowing was all I had done. Because it's fun. I think flat water is an amazing sport, and I follow it to this day. I love watching what these guys are doing and the training that they do, and it's very relevant, I think, for us as coastal rowers. But to me, it didn't have the same spark of adrenaline. Just calling me straight up adrenaline junkie, fess up here. There's not death involved or the possibility of death involved. Takes it down a notch.
Which is a good segue, because I first discovered Ben by reading his blog. He has an awesome blog called on rebelrower.com/blog. And he's been sharing there and on Facebook some amazing short video clips of him rowing in rough water. And so I thought it'd be lovely if we could spend a little bit of time today talking about rough water technique specifically, because Ben, you are a technician, aren't you?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think there's an art to it. And I've spent a lot of time figuring it out and studying cross disciplines, whitewater kayaking, surf skis, surfing, to really discover what it means to be a technician in rough water.
Now, we're going to be talking broadly across any type of boat that rows on the ocean or anywhere in rough water. Is that right today?
Absolutely. There's the FISA class coastal boat, which is really the up and coming thing. But as far as these techniques go, they're universal for rowing boats in rough water. So that will, of course, include the FISA shells, but any boat that has really the structural integrity to take waves, and the key thing is the ability to self-drain.
Good stuff. Right. We're going to kick off by showing one of Ben's little videos here. And this is him rowing through breakers. There's a smash as you go through a wave. Take a look around. You can see the next one coming. And there we go. So back to Ben. Let's start with the real basics. Rough water technique. What's the first thing someone needs to know?
Well, the real basics is you have to know how to get back in your boat if you fall out. So, that's just key. You have to be able to get in the boat quickly, in control, with full confidence, so that falling out of the boat is no longer a concern. That's the question I always get from people first. It's like, oh, what happens if you fall out? Like, well, I kind of laugh. I get back in the boat and I keep on. So there's a lot involved in that. So I do have a whole blog about that, which people can link to. But as far as step one and getting through a breaker, it's being able to get back into your boat. And then I guess really step two is finding breakers. And the thing with breakers, if you have to recognize most of these boats that we're rowing are not designed to run, heavy surf off a beach. If you slam a boat into the sand, it's probably going to have a very, very short lifespan. So what I have where I row is a series of offshore rocks and breakers. And so I take the boat offshore so that if I do fall out of the boat or if I don't make it through the wave, I'm certain that I'm landing back in deep water. So it minimizes that risk of, serious risk of head injuries, spinal injuries that you would get in actually hitting the bottom at a high velocity. So it's really your first two kind of checks. Can I get back in my boat? And if I fall out of the boat in this surf, am I falling into a safe place?
So I've got the link and I'll put it in the show notes from Ben's blog post, which is on reboarding is what you call it in your blog post. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay, so we're confident getting back in the boat. We found a great place with some breakers. Hit me with some technique, Ben.
All right. Well, first technique is kind of a bulldog mentality, because once you get started, there's no stopping. You got to go. So the very first thing is to row as fast as you can. Just gun it big speed. And so what I do is I get this snapshot mentally. So I'll turn around, get a snapshot of where the waves are breaking, how they're breaking, just this instant evaluation of the scene. And I hold that picture in my mind because obviously, as rowers know, you're going backwards. So you've got to judge your distance to the wave. You've got to judge when the waves are coming to you, and then just keep getting these glimpses over your shoulders. And so the big technique in getting through waves is really knowing when to stop rowing. Because as we all know, you get a good hang on your drive. And if you're hanging on the oars as you go over the wave, you're likely to actually launch yourself out of your boat. So the trick is knowing when to depower. And so what I do is I once I get speed up, as soon as I get to the base of the wave, I'll stop rowing, throw my weight forward. So I'll lean to the bow, sometimes so much so that I'll actually lay down in the cockpit. And that helps to weight the bow so the bow doesn't pop up as high. And once you get that bow into the wave just comes and creams you. And that's why you need that speed. You need that speed to just rocket through.
So this is when you're coming head on to a wave.
Head on into
you're not riding the wave back to the beach.
Riding the wave back to the beach is totally different. This we're talking about is getting through the waves. Okay. So yeah, it's getting that speed, knowing when to stop rowing, leaning into the wave, so that's into the bow at this point, and letting the boat really like a missile, just bam, rocket right through. Generally, as the breaker hits me, I'll feather the blades and just kind of set them on the water as additional stabilizers, because things can get pretty chaotic once the boat gets airborne and water's hitting you from all directions. So I just kind of gently lay the blades flat on the surface, and then the boat will, like I said, just rocket through, slam down on the other side. Generally you'll be full of water at that point, and then you just gotta go. You've got to start rowing again, because invariably there's another one coming. So it's timing.
So you start rowing as soon as the bows are coming out on the far side of the wave.
Before that, once the bow hits the base of the wave, I'll stop rowing.
And then you start again?
I'll start again only after the boat is through. So
including the stern, right?
Yeah, I won't row during the break, because what will tend to happen is if you get your body weight suspended on the blades, the boat will often fall before your body. So you can actually row yourself right out of the boat if you row during the break event itself.
I can see the challenge there, and the desire to stay in the boat is strong.
A little bit. But like I said, we already mastered our reboarding before we attempted such a thing. So it's more style points if you stay in the boat at that time.
Few humiliations. Now we're going to watch another video that Ben has shared with us, which is of bracing in breakers. Take a look at this. And there goes the second wave right over your head. So Ben, talk us through what's happening. If I roll back to where we start the slow motion piece, what are people watching here?
Sure. So this is taking a breaker sideways, which generally people say is a no, but I say no, it's just a whole another way to experience a wave. So really you got to lean. Here I am leaning into the wave, kind of taking the wave. And then, so I'll talk about this a little bit more. That kind of got ahead of me there. But the technique of bracing is a technique to take waves over the side. And I learned this technique through kayaking. It's a really, really common technique in whitewater kayaking and surf kayaking. And the idea is that you're using the blade of your oar as a brace, hence the idea of bracing. And so when you take a wave over the side, generally the wave will want to roll you, all right? And it'll roll you away from the wave itself. Wave is a big circle. So what you need to do in bracing is counteract the rolling motion of the wave. So it takes just a tremendous amount of confidence, because you've got to get into that wave and you lean into it big time. So on a big wave like the one in the video there, what I do is I lean my hips towards the wave to get the boat to lean, and I'll even lean my entire upper body. So I've got my shoulder leaning out of the boat in towards the wave. My oar that is on the wave side is feathered, and I'm leaning my weight on that blade. And this is something rowers do intuitively, particularly in flat water shells. You know, you get in the boat, you put your blades flat on the water, and the boat gets really, really stable. And so this is something we're doing here. We're just choosing which blade to use. And so you're using the wave side blade to lean into. Leaning into that blade coupled with your hip lean and your shoulder lean can really counteract the force of the wave.
Yeah, I noticed your hands go massively apart. So your right hand, which is on the downstream side, is lifted up so that tilts the boat further.
Exactly. So I'm purposefully offsetting my boat, right? So I've got one hand in my lap, and in that video, I've got one hand like overhead. And to get a sense for how high the boat is, even with my hand overhead, that blade still isn't touching the water. It's that much of a downhill slope. So yes, you're purposefully offsetting the boat into the wave so that when that wave hits you, you find this perfect equilibrium, right? Where your body lean counters the force wave, and you can actually ride the wave sideways for quite some time. And it's just super fun. It's the most exhilarating thing I think there is.
So you're sitting sideways on the front face of the wave as the wave's moving forwards, and you're just sitting with it.
Yep, absolutely. You just get that perfect equilibrium. Like I said, your body leaning into the wave, and the wave will just carry you along sideways. You know, it's a feeling thing. You've got to really embrace the sea, kind of. You know, if you don't lean enough, the boat will roll you, or the wave will roll you, sorry. And if you lean too much, you'll roll the boat into the wave. So it's a feeling, it's a intuitive thing that you get over time.
Can you make small adjustments while you're in that wave?
Oh, you do constantly. So it's I don't know, it's like this ultimate Zen experience, because you know, the wave, it's so loud. Like, imagine just taking a wave sideways on your head. You know, it's super loud, super chaotic. You can't see anything, you can't hear anything but this roar of water. The boat is on edge. You know, you've got a whole rigger buried, a whole oar buried. So it's this place of absolute chaos, but you've got to stay perfectly calm. You know, your mind just absolutely clear, because you're making these nuances of adjustment that whole time. You know, like if you get into a little eddy inside the wave, you let up on the lean a little bit so you don't fall into that eddy. Or if you feel a little bit more weight of breaker coming, it's like, okay, I need to counter that with a little bit more shoulder lean, or even just this full-on jump into the wave. So it's this really beautiful space where you're just embraced by this powerful natural force, and you're making these constant nuances and not necessarily nuances of adjustments to be with that energy.
Now, the last question I have about technique is, how do you go around a buoy?
How do you go around the buoy?
Do you counter feather your blade on the side where you're trying to make a sharp turn?
So in the racing, generally, yeah, you do drag an oar. You know, when I first got into the coastal racing and the buoy turning, that didn't make a lot of sense to me. It's like, well, you're losing a lot of speed that way. It probably makes a little bit more sense to try to keep some speed up. But what I noticed is that most people do the really sharp turns, and the rule in coastal racing is the boat in front of you has right of way. So if that boat in front of you slows down, you can't crash into them. So you've got to slow down anyways. So I think what we're finding in the racing is the shorter, sharper turns are better. So it's just, yeah, letting one oar down completely and cranking on the other oar.
And do you roll right forwards to the catch on the other oar so you get the maximum angle of attack?
No, it depends. You know, sometimes doing a whole bunch of shorter strokes will whip the boat around a little bit better. You know, it's just, and once you get that slow, you know, as you're coming towards almost a stop, you get into a full catch. It's just a lot of strain on the one arm, and you don't want to risk kind of blowing out a forearm or something at that point. So it's yeah, slow and bam, 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 tap the thing around and speed up again.
There we go.
Yeah, which is really, I think, one of the biggest physiological challenges of coastal racing is that constant speed adjustment. You know, the start, stop, slow, speed up. You know, it's like, imagine doing a 6K on your erg and somebody coming up at one point and saying, okay, stop, and now start again. It's just that complete breaker rhythm.
Yeah, I can get that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, inspired by all your work and being a waterman, you decided to build boats, Ben. Talk us through the boat building story. When did that start?
That started, probably around 10 years ago, I would say, 2010. And a lot of that started from just not having a boat to row. You know, in the US here, we're really, really slow on picking up the international FISA class racing boats. We really didn't, I had no awareness of them. So the only things we had here were the big kind of surf boats, which are awesome in waves, and just a beast to row, you know, kind of slow, heavy, tons of windage. So not a real boat you'd want to get out and row 30 miles in. All right. On the other side of things, we had these open water shells that were quite quick, really efficient movers, could handle harbor chop really, really well, but nowhere near the capabilities that I was looking for in a like a big water boat. So what I just did was, for lack of really anything being available on the market that I wanted to row for my own personal use, I started designing and building. That's it.
There we go. And the Rebel Rower boat single, it's gone through a lot of iterations, I'm so sure. Where is it at now?
So that is almost ready to send out to the world for public consumption. That's a design that I actually first designed in 2014. So it's been altogether 6 years of development of that boat. And
So
that's, go ahead.
it's not a FISA shape for FISA races. This is for people who want to do open water rowing.
No, this is FISA.
It
This
is
is actually a FISA spec boat. It was sort of a convergent evolution thing. You know, when I had started designing boats, when I finally became aware of the FISA class, I was like, huh, my boats actually fit that class. So they were all within that same beam, waterline beam length ratio. So kind of a convergent evolution there. So the Rebel looks completely different than any other of the FISA boats, but it's fully compliant. And I've even had, you know, one that I raced in 2018. So that went through the FISA scrutiny and whatnot, and was given a thumbs up, go ahead. You know, the rules for the boat class are really interesting. It's basically a box. You know, it's like you get a beam, a second beam, a length, and a weight, and that's it. And there's like full on creativity you can do within those just kind of basic guidelines.
That's awesome, because, and it's quite a big break, I think, from previous FISA rules, which have been much more prescriptive. So I know in flat water rowing, there is a boat design called the FISA shape, which anyone can take a copy of the designs and do with what they want. So do you think this is a good change?
Absolutely. I think it's really good because it just opens up the sport entirely. You know, think about mountain biking, you know, kind of our parallel sport on land. You know, the difference between mountain biking and road biking is a constant sort of how they compare flat water to coastal. And if you look at the mountain bike world, there are so many different kinds of bikes, you know, and there's bikes that race downhill, cross country, enduro, you know, they've got down country now. There's all these different categories of bikes. And so you can pick something that suits your personality. And I think as long as FISA keeps the rules for the coastal boats within that vague guideline, so the boats are generally comparable, and you open up that creativity for companies, for the users, you're going to get a much better boat. You're going to be able to say, this is the way I row, and that particular boat is going to be better for me. And you don't have to leave the sport in order to do so.
Now, Ben has very kindly agreed to give us a sneak preview of the Rebel single. So, Ben, take us on the guided tour. What are we going to see?
Okay, well, I guess I can get everybody dizzy who's watching this by walking out to the boat. But yeah, we're going to see the prototype of the Rebel. Actually, this is one in a string of prototypes, but it's our latest and greatest. So give me just a second here as I step out of the shed into the wonderful gray weather of New England. Flipping my phone here, and voila, there she is.
Ah. She's a looker. So starting here at the bow, talk us through, what are we seeing?
So the bow is a reverse bow. And the reason we went with the reverse bow is for piercing the smaller waves. What I have found, big waves, believe it or not, are much easier to row through than small waves. It's those small, short, choppy, slappy waves that just kill boat speed. They're like driving your car over a bunch of little speed bumps. And so this reverse bow, what they have is this really low volume area that first hits the water. So that low volume area doesn't tend to pop up. And so this will really pierce those smaller waves. If you look right from the bow here, you see your initial entry is super knife-like, right? And so in those small little tiny waves, these reverse bows are really, really good at keeping momentum because they stay very level. So you don't get a lot of pounding in the boat. Every time a boat pounds, you've got energy going downwards, which is not forwards.
Got it.
Yeah, so that's the reverse bow. So of course, every advantage has a disadvantage, and so the advantage of a bow that pierces waves is, well, you're piercing waves. So if you get into a bigger wave, the tendency of these is to dive, right? So they'll submerge too deeply into the bigger waves. So to counter that, we followed the reverse bow with this very high volume, high flare. I don't know if you can quite see that, but you see how the
Yeah,
sides really, really flare outwards.
I see it.
So, yeah, so once the boat kind of hits a bigger wave, this higher volume area in the bow here will then lift the boat over those larger waves. And that counteracts any diving that the reverse bow would tend towards. So the goal with that is to really get a boat that reacts accordingly to your conditions. If it's smaller, slappy waves, it'll pierce right through them. Once you get bigger waves, it gets this really gentle rolling motion over those larger waves, which I have been loving.
Walk us on down.
Walking down. So again, we gotta getting towards the cockpit, and this is where the boat really starts to flare out, right? So you can see those sides really come out, and this is where you start getting a lot of stability in the boat. Coming into the cockpit itself, we went nuts, really. We went totally blank slate, and we were like, you know, these coastal boats are all just taking flat water components and setting them in a coastal boat. And we're like, that may not make the best sense for a coastal boat. So we started with, actually, we recreated all components ourselves. So we made a new seat.
Mm,
Very cool thing about this seat is the wheels, you can't quite see this without a person, but a person's hip will come from here to here. So the wheels are outside of the rower's hips rather
right.
than in a standard seat where the wheels are underneath. So generally a wheelbase in a standard seat is here, a number of inches further inboard from where we have that. The reason we did that was to give the rower a broader stance in the boat. So this brings a tremendous amount of control for the rower into the boat. Yeah, it's like the difference between standing on a piece of plywood or a 2x4.
I totally see that. And I see that you also have inverted wheels. They don't run in a groove, they run over a dome on the slant.
Absolutely. You can think about boats that are launching off a beach and all the sand and crud you track in. So what we have are tracks that are convex, they're curved, and then the wheels slide over those, right? And that way, whatever gets on these tracks just falls right off, and the tracks are not holding all of that crud.
How does the seat rest in there, or does it have a clip to hold it in place?
It has a clip. The clip, if you see here, is raised, so there is a little knob.
Oh, from the outside. I see. Yep, I can see the flange.
Yeah. Outside there. Yep. So you can't invert the boat, of course, without the seat falling out, because hopefully users will be getting out and flipping and crashing in the works.
So that's a regular Delrin seat, nylon seat wheel?
Actually, my partner in crime, Dennis here, he's the tech guy behind all this stuff, and I don't actually know the particular material of the wheels. I'm fortunate in the other half of the business, Dennis is the detail guy, and he has been going nuts on just every little detail like that, you know, like laminates, wheel material, bearing material. We've gone through 4 different wheel bearings just in the last month, trying to just get the absolute perfect balance of rollability and durability for salt.
Fantastic.
Yeah, the other thing we did with the wheels is they're much bigger. You know, these are like off-road wheels here. So on the spare chance you do get some sand or seaweed or whatever in the
in the boat here, these big wheels will just roll right over it. They're not going to get jammed up on anything.
I see that.
Yeah, fun. So that's the seat. Actually, believe it or not, this seat has taken us years. Because the wheels are no longer underneath, you now have a totally different engineering challenge because you're spanning the tracks with the weight completely supported by the seat structure itself. So in order to do that without gaining a lot of weight, that was quite a puzzle.
I see that.
We've done it. All right, moving on. The rigger is actually the only component we have not made in-house. This is a Durham boat company, carbon wing.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll tackle our own rigger later. So moving to the feet, we redesigned the foot brace. Okay, so first thing we did is went wider. It's a coastal boat. Like by rule, it has to be wider than a flat water shell. So you have space, and we're like, well, why wouldn't we use this? Who really wants to row with their heels mashed together? So the first thing we did was widen out the feet to give you a better ergonomic base. So your heels are now a lot more aligned with your hips. Much more comfortable. The other thing we did is, I don't know if it's just me, but I find the little teeth and adjusting the foot stretchers to be just such a nuisance. They feel like they always get jammed and whatnot. So we got rid of any teeth in our adjustment system. Yes, we're using these brake pads that wrap around this structure of the foot brace. These brake pads can stop a car, so they can certainly hold your feet in place.
And the brake pad is underneath, inside that.
Inside, right? So we've got this on the top here, which is a clamping mechanism, which creates a tremendous amount of torque that clamps that brake pad onto the base here. So what you get with this is infinite adjustment, all right from the cockpit with no fiddling, with 3 attachment points. And this foot brace attaches directly to this big beam in the boat. So you've got a central structural beam that the foot brace attaches to, which transfers your power directly into the strongest point of the hull itself.
So the 3 connection points are where?
They're gone. They're
good.
Kind out of it. So if you can see, what we've developed is a foot brace that actually is custom wrapped over this structural framing member of the hull.
Very smart.
Yeah, definitely. And so this becomes this incredibly solid, essentially a one-piece unit. So you don't have the 3 focus points. You've got this, and it's long. You can see this travels quite a ways along the beam. So you're really transferring your pressures out of pinpoints and into a much broader field.
I see that. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a bit of a rough model. In our next version, we're going to kind of smooth out and give this a nice curve and whatnot. That's that. Also, we've got on the side here, you see these quick release for adjusting your heel height.
Okay. So that goes up and vertical, up and down for the heel cups.
Absolutely. So in some ways, this is a lot more like a Concept 2 ergometer foot, where it's just like a super simple adjustment of heel heights. It's broader. It's attached to a big beam that's a structural member of the boat itself. So really, really happy with that. Pretty cool stuff. What else we got? So we've attached. The other thing for coastal boats is they tend to leak, and for me, particularly the way I row, that's pretty bad, right? So we wanted to get rid of any through hole fitting, so nothing pierces the hull. all these tracks are surface mounted. They don't pierce. The outrigger is on this special bracket that has a through hole attachment here that, if you look through here, does not pierce the hull.
Very
So
good.
all this stuff is external, so there's no places for leaks to develop over time.
And I see the same with the foot stretcher. So it's mounted over that bracket,
Yep.
and clamped onto it, but actually it doesn't pierce the hull and it doesn't go through that main beam either.
Exactly. Right. No piercing of the hull. People can pierce their bodies all they want, but I was adamant, no piercings in the boat. So yeah, that's stuff there. I guess as we continue the tour, this is a simple thing, but it is one of my favorite features, the adjustable fin, right? So it's on a tension cord, which once you release that tension, you can adjust this up and down right from the cockpit. So you can reach that just behind the outrigger here. And what that does, you see if I drop it down,
Oh yeah.
I get a nice long fin, right? Pull this thing up, much less of a fin, and anything in between.
Cool.
So that, yeah. So what this does is I don't know if you've ever been in like a heavy crosswind and you just got to pull on one oar constantly to keep straight.
Yes.
Yes, this eliminates that. So what this does is the further this goes down, the more the boat will want to turn downwind in a cross breeze. The more it's up, the more the boat will turn into the wind. So depending on the strength of the wind, you can set this to balance so you're going perfectly straight and you don't have to pull on one oar or the other, because the fin itself will balance the above water pressure with the air.
Very interesting. And I see that it's mounted so that the slot is actually very high above the bottom of the cockpit. So there's no chance of water flooding in through there.
Right. Yeah, so yeah, this is way up here, top of the cockpit. And then this whole slot itself, there's this carbon fiber mass under here. So this is actually a structural play. So even though this seems like a hole piercing, there's a tremendous amount of reinforcement and carbon fiber structure that bridges the deck and the hull at this point.
So while you're rowing, Ben, you can just reach forward and pull that up or down depending on the needs of the conditions.
Yep, absolutely. It's not something that you could do so quick, like say mid-race, you would adjust the fin. It's not like that. You would set it, if you're racing, you would set it to the conditions before the race. So in your kind of warm-up laps, it's like, okay, let me set this to balance just where I want it, and then good to go. But yeah, just for your general rowing, yeah, whenever you feel the boat wants to be adjusted, just reach out, adjust it, carry on. You don't need to unstrap your feet or anything. Just reach over, lift it up, on your way. The other thing that I really like about this is you can actually put the boat down. That was something that always drove me crazy with the other boats, is you got a boat on a beach and then you got to dig a hole for the fin, or they always have the tires out to put the fin in the tires, and I'm like, man, this is so much work for a fin. Like, give me a break. Yeah. So then there's your break. Bam, fin is gone.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
You could sell that to the kayakers as well.
Yeah, the nice thing about this is it doesn't flip into a slot, which is what a lot of the kayak fins do. And so this doesn't really get jammed with sand.
Yep.
And then I guess since we're looking at this part, this is our other big breakthrough moment in the boat, is the water is draining out the sides. So you get this kind of Darth Vader looking section here, right? And what this does is, the FISA rule is the boats have to drain, right? So with forward motion, water has to drain out of the hull. It does not say it has to drain out an open transom.
Yep.
And so there are things that some aspects of transoms are great, others are not so great. I wanted to move away from a transom stern for a number of reasons, and this is what allows us to do it. So water drains right out the sides. And don't have to bring it down the stern. And so that opened us up to completely change the shape of the stern of the boat.
Talk us through it.
So, which part?
So the stern, as I see it, is very high. It has a huge volume of air inside there.
Mm-hmm.
So it must be very buoyant, and it's quite short. I got that wrong.
Yeah, so with the tapered stern, you lose buoyancy because there's less kind of in the water, which is good because you have less wetted surface area. So a less wetted surface area is less friction that you're pulling with your oar. To counter, again, boats are all balanced, right? So if you take something away, it's often good to add it somewhere else. So without water draining, you see we have this high stern deck, right? So now you still have a tremendous area of buoyancy. So, you know, if you're flying over a wave and this wants to sink, you've got all this air displacing the water. So the boat doesn't dive in the stern either. And you get that with a loss of wetted surface area by getting rid of the transom and coming back to a nice sharp end of the hull.
I see it.
Yeah, and so you can see that in the water. You just get this tiny little stream of wake coming off that stern there rather than the much broader base of the transom stern.
Ben, that is an amazing achievement, and I'm not going to ask you which model it is because I'm sure there have been so many modifications. What do people need to do if they'd like to try one or to put themselves on the list to buy one from you?
Well, if they want to try one, they have to solve the pandemic first. So we're a little bit held up, I'm sure, like most people are with that. But if they go to our website, we do have a email contact. They should definitely drop us a line, and yeah, we'll get them in a boat as soon as we can. You know, this boat will be available to row for people around here in Massachusetts and New England. Building a series of other prototypes through the summer and hoping to get them on the market later this year.
That is fantastic, Ben. I feel privileged to be one of the first people to see the nearly completed model.
Yeah, this is actually the first public video showing of the boat.
World first on Rowing Chat. You heard it here first.
There it is.
Now, we have a question here from Carol Daly. She says, how does the water drain out of the back compartment? So some demonstration, please.
Okay, well, as we come back to the feet, what we did is we, you know, even with the open transoms, you have a footwell. And so from that footwell, the boats will generally have an upslope to get the water out of the footwell onto the transom. So we did a bunch of measurements of those, and it's like, okay, well, what's the slope that water will rise under the momentum of rowing, right? You know, rowing, it's a pulsing motion. So the water gets kind of flowing back and forth, and it will rise up a slope. So what we got was just the perfect slant upwards to this flat area, which now slopes slightly downwards, and that channels the water out the side. So every stroke you take, the water kind of climbs this gentle rise, hits this turn, and goes out the side of the hull there.
So a little bit of water will slosh out kind of every stroke, and you never end up with much around your heels.
Right, and that's only assuming you're in rough enough water to have water coming in the first place.
Oh, Carol says that's not the area she's talking about. There's a section in the bow where there's a small bulb. Oh, do you see in the deck?
Yeah. Sorry, I see. So this is going to be filled. This whole area is going to be filled. So yeah, I kind of didn't attend to that. So yeah, if you're looking here right under the seat, there's this massive hollow here, right? And so how's the water going to drain out of there? Well, that's not going to be in the finished boat. We're creating a modular unit that sits inside here. So what this will come up to a sealed compartment all through the bow here, and then join this slope there to seal off that cockpit. And what this is, it'll be a watertight storage compartment and also a ballast box, because we're building these boats way under the FISA minimum weight. We're actually shooting for like half the weight.
Wow.
Yeah, and so you're gonna need some way to bring it back up to weight. And so this box that we're designing to custom fit this will be able to hold your ballast.
When I was speaking to Jim Baston last week, she explained that she has to carry ballast because her boat is underweight. So what is the FISA boat weight minimum?
35 kilograms or 77 pounds.
So it's a lot heavier than a flat water boat, but equally, you're going to be telling me that this boat weighs around 17 kilos.
We're shooting for it. We don't have an exact final weight yet, but we are really trying to get this down. I would say, as far as pounds go, like 50 pounds rigged.
Right.
Yeah, and we're doing that with we had a global team of engineers working for 2 years on developing a boat that is stronger and lighter.
So Ben, flip your camera around. Carol, who has asked the question, firstly has said, I love this boat. And then she says that she asked you this question on your Facebook page today.
Oh, well, good. Glad we were able to save me some typing.
And she says, is it 50 pounds rigged without the ballast box or all in?
Without. And that's the idea of the ballast box, right? Is you need to add weight. So we want the weight to be in a spot of the boat you can just pick up and take out. So we're going to do this clever kind of quick release fastening system. So let's say you get to the beach, you got, this big heavy ballast thing in the boat. You just take that thing out, put it on the beach. You can still pick your boat up and walk to your car with it.
Well, that is fantastic. Carol, thank you for those super questions. Very, very pertinent. And Ben, I want to dive out again and talk a little bit more about the adoption of rowing coastal into big events. Now, I know you've been to Hong Kong, you've done the Round the Island race, you've done the World Coastal Rowing Championships. What's coming up over the horizon for coastal that excites you?
Well, the big one that's a certain thing is the Youth Olympic Games 2022. Huge moment, I think, for coastal. And a pretty big statement by the IOC where they approved the location in Senegal that did not have a rowing course. And so they said to FISA, it's like, if you want to row, it has to be coastal. There's a beach right here, get boats on the beach and row. And so that's the discipline coming up 2022.
Brilliant. And so there clearly has been an enormous amount of behind the scenes work from FISA.
Yeah, I mean, I've been hearing talk about this for the last number of years. And I can applaud FISA for what they've done with their Rowing for All initiative, the amount of work that they've put into the Coastal World Championships. Those are stunning events. You're getting hundreds of people from all around the world. And it's this really awesome balance of super high-end competition. You've got Olympic athletes showing up to this, national team guys, people that are coastal specific and train full time. You got serious athletes, and it's fun. It's like this awesome combination of really vicious competitive racing with a heck of a good time. And I think that's just hopefully stays a mark of coastal rowing. Just that it's fun. It's a boat on a beach. Where can you go wrong?
Exactly. If you have a boat and a beach, you can hold a coastal rowing event, if I understand correctly.
Yeah, I think the trick for coastal rowing is to not overthink it. You know, just race boats off a beach. You know, like, that's it. Be safe. Get your safety, patrol and lifeguards
Yeah.
and whatnot. But really, that's it. Boats, beach, and people. Don't overthink it. Don't get all crazy about your rules and you're this and that. Just do it, man. Like, race boats.
Now, Ben, we feel so privileged. Thank you very, very much for showing us and explaining and coaching us with everything you've done today. Can you tell the listeners where they can connect with you online?
Absolutely. There's the rebelrower.com website there. You can find our contact sign up forms there. You can always email me direct at rowcoastal@gmail.com. One of the things that I will be offering is training for youth for the Youth Olympic Games. There's almost nobody in this country that has tons of experience in coastal rowing. And so I'll be offering, elite training for kids that are interested and getting on that trajectory. They've got to hurry up because it's 2022. So if you're going to be a youth in the Youth Olympic Games, you got to start figuring out coastal. So those would be a couple immediate places. rebelrower.com would be easiest, and you can get my email through there too.
And of course, for the Youth Olympics, you need to be 16 now. What's the age maximum in 2022?
I think it's 18. So I think you've nailed it. You got to be no more than 16 at this point.
Guys and girls, moms and dads, friends and relatives, spread the word. It sounds like there's an awesome opportunity, the potential to row a high-class boat. I'm guessing there's some boats that might come with the coaching, Ben.
Oh, absolutely.
Ben Booth, it's been a delight speaking to you. Thank you so much for giving us your time, your generous insights. I, for one, am super keen. I have done a very small amount of coastal, but not regularly enough. And living in a maritime environment as I do, it's very easy for us to get to the water. And I can totally see some of the design advantages of what you've put into the Rebel single scull.
Well, it comes from a lot of years out there on the ocean. So tons of fun.
Thank you so much to everybody for listening. For those who are watching live, for Ben Booth in rural Massachusetts, enjoying the early spring season, and to you, our wonderful listeners, I appreciate every single one of you. Stay safe, and let's all keep an open mind about maybe trying out coastal rowing sometime in the future. Till next time, bye-bye.